Welcome back to the Pulse of St. Louis. You know, the first annual Empowered Black Professional Women's Conference is being held in St. Louis next Saturday. It will focus on the emotional and mental well-being of Black women. Joining me now, Tiffany Sidney. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist. Melissa Douglas, she is a licensed clinical social worker. Renee Hodgins, she is a licensed professional counselor, and she is also the CEO and founder of the Empowered Black Professional Women's Conference. And Dr. Lex James, a certified sex educator. Thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate it. Renee, let's start the conversation talking about the need for this conference. Why is it so important?
Well, there's definitely a need because oftentimes we as women, and particularly Black women, we are juggling multiple career, family, community service, and a lot of times what we're doing is we're taking care of everyone else. We're not taking care of ourselves in the way that we should, and sometimes what results is that stress, overeating, obesity, heart issues, all of the things that come from doing everything but not taking the priority to take care of ourselves. And so a lot of times, even in our community, we shun from mental health, as if saying that you have a mental illness or you're dealing with an emotional issue makes you appear that you're weaker than you should be. And so a lot of times we shun from getting the services.
Well, let's talk about stress. How does it impact the body?
There's a lot of long-term effects that stress has on us, and a lot of times we ignore it because of so many other things that we have to do. And so we have appetite changes, we have sleep changes, we have the heart disease that Renee talked about. We have these headaches that we tend to just overlook day to day, stomach issues, the list just goes on and on. And so that's something that I'll actually be presenting on. And the title of it is, What is Your Yes Costing You? And we really look at how our overcommitments and our stress completely knock self-care off of our to-do list day to day.
Self-care is important, Tiffany. What can we do to make sure that we are caring for ourselves as women?
Oh gosh, taking care of ourselves, taking a trip to Hawaii, that would be great.
Okay, what if we can't afford a trip to Hawaii? I'd love to go.
Well, I think just acknowledging the strength that we have is a great way to self-care, in addition to acknowledging that sometimes we may come into difficult times. It's okay to have a little setback and then to realize that we're able to be resilient and bounce back up. Having a great social support system, family, friends, people that you can talk to, a special intimate circle of friends and people that you can rely on. And that could include people like us, your professional counselors, therapists, your clergymen or women, just to name a few.
Sure. Dr. Lex, how does sex play into all of this?
So when people hear sexuality, they just think of the first three letters, S-E-X, which is actually just such a small portion of it. And women of color, specifically Black women, have a really hard time learning to be vulnerable. There's no place of safety for us. We've been taught to accrue as much power as possible to get the most degrees, to be twice as good, to get half of what everybody else has, to be beautiful, to have straight hair or curly hair, to have the perfect body, and then we don't feel fulfilled in our relationships and holistically. So sexuality includes self-esteem. It includes how you perform what womanhood looks to you. Is that woman too masculine? Is she too tough? She's not feminine enough. She's not submissive enough. And then we go into relationships thinking we have to protect our power and saying, I can't be vulnerable with you. You're not safe. Who can I be vulnerable with? Just with myself. And that affects our pleasure in sexuality. It affects our ability to establish long-term and giving relationships where we're not feeling completely depleted all the time. It affects our self-esteem, the internalized ideas we have from everybody else about how we're supposed to look, how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to dress, respectability politics. So we don't have our own voices. We listen to everybody else and try and mold ourselves to fit. And at the end of the day, we feel like we're coming up short.
Well, I think that as a Black woman, I do have a voice. I do use it. I don't feel vulnerable in my relationship. I know I'm beautiful, I know I'm smart, I know I'm intelligent, and I know that a lot of women feel that way. And then there are those who don't. I totally get it. So for those who are in this space where they don't feel that confidence and that self-esteem, what do you do to help them get there?
So what I actually talk about is the guide to getting rid of sexual shame. And so sexual shame, again, doesn't just mean those first three letters in sexual. It talks about amplifying that voice. It talks about where you got ideas from, and if you value those ideas, what are your own ideas? And so being vulnerable in a relationship doesn't mean feeling weak. It means, can I share secrets with you? Do I trust you to take risks with me? Do I share with you my hopes, my dreams without fear of them being belittled or fear of not having that support? That's what vulnerability, because vulnerability builds true intimacy.
And I love that too. I wish I could take some time out just to watch hers as well, her segment, because mine also feeds off of yours in talking about the many types of intimacy and how so many people have the misconception when they think of intimacy, they think only of sex. Which is not a bad thing. However, there are so many other types of intimacy, and I can't give it all away.
Well, let's give some of it away. Like what?
Okay, yes. I was going to name a few. Like in addition to sexual intimacy, there's the emotional intimacy that you can have with your partner. There's spiritual intimacy. There's aesthetic intimacy, just being able to share your common interests in things that are beautiful.
Let's talk about the top 5 issues that are impacting the Black woman, you would say. Melissa, let's start with you.
I would definitely say stress and overwhelm is definitely one of them. As Lex mentioned, there's a pressure, and we have to work harder and put in more and always be better and seem to be very prepared and on top of things, and we don't have the room to mess up ever. And so I think it's definitely stress and overwhelm that my plate being half full actually looks like being twice as full as everybody else's. And so that would definitely be one for me, is just definitely stress.
Yeah, Renee, what about you think?
And that's where the idea of where the Black Superwoman came in, because we're having to do more with less. And so in many ways, that's where the stress results in the stress, because in the workplace, for instance, I have to be on top of my game in order to even be recognized. And even though I'm on top of my game, I still will be overlooked. And this, what I'm saying is things that I'm hearing, have heard from professionals in my practice, where repeatedly the same thing. I'm doing the work, but I'm not getting recognized. I'm not receiving the promotion. If I address it, then I'm being confrontational. Then I'm being the angry Black woman. So then, what's the answer? Then do I just suppress that? If I suppress that, then what happens? Then those emotions are going to go somewhere. Those feelings, and that's where the stress comes. That's where the illnesses come, because we're withholding how we really feel, and we're not resolving the problem because we feel that we don't have a format to address something where someone just takes us for granted. So you just keep doing the job and you get no recognition, and so it's very frustrating.
And those are the kinds of things that will be addressed at the conference,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
All right, we'll talk about that when we come back. Stay with us. We are back in a moment. Welcome back to the Pulse of St. Louis. While we were in the break, Melissa said, hey, I got something else I want to say. So Melissa, what is it that you want to talk about?
Yes, I definitely want to add another thing that's on that list is definitely anxiety.
Yeah.
It's the #1 commonly diagnosed mental illness in the U.S. And we demonize anxiety sometimes because to be anxious is normal. But I'm definitely seeing in practice and just in the research and things that, especially, again, as Black women, that anxiety and that worry to be perfectionist and all of that is definitely showing up and definitely adding more of that pressure onto us. So definitely anxiety.
And as you mentioned, anxiety is normal. So when do you know it has crossed the line into abnormalcy?
Absolutely. So we look at 3 things when we're diagnosed with a mental illness, and that is intensity of the symptoms, its duration of the symptoms, and it's also frequency of the symptoms. And so to be anxious and to have anxious thoughts sometimes is very normal, but if you see it really interfering with your everyday life and it's happening more and more and those symptoms are getting more and more extreme and it's really having you question like, something may not be right, then that's the time to really go see someone and actually get some support.
Good point. Dr. Lex, you wanted to add
And
something?
so just getting back to those kind of core things that are bothersome, and so what I see in my private practice with couples, families, and youth is the silence around sex and sexuality. So we also don't talk about sexual abuse. We don't talk about coercive behavior. We don't talk about these things that have happened from some cousin or uncle or aunt or babysitter. We don't talk about them for males either. And so coming into practice and being a sexuality educator and a marriage and family therapist, that's something that eats us from inside out. So we carry a lot of shame. And as we know, Black girls actually start to become sexualized when they hit puberty. So people start to think of them and see them. We know that Black kids are no longer considered kids once they hit puberty because now they look older. And it's like, well, no, they're still children. They still get to be taught as children, but yet we police them like they're adults. We say, don't do that. Your pants are too tight. Where are you going? You're acting fast. And the stressors that that puts on, so what does it mean for me to be fast if I have these natural feelings?
So what should we be saying?
Right, so what we should be saying is, these are the morals and values of our family. How does this fit into the morals and values of our family? What are the morals and values that you're developing? And we also know from CDC research that the more we teach kids about sex and sexuality, comprehensive, Missouri is an abstinence-only state, comprehensive sexuality education means they wait longer to actually have any type of sexual intercourse and sexual play, and they're safer when they do it, meaning less likely to have an STI, less likely to be pregnant, and also less likely to be in an abusive relationship as a teen.
Yeah. Tiffany, what do you hope folks will walk away with from attending the conference?
Wow, that's actually one of my favorite questions. What are your hopes? What are your hopes for today? What are your hopes for a month from now, a year from now? And I hope that people are able to take at least one or two pieces away from the conference that helps them to feel more empowered, or even finding a piece that's educational for them, to know that behavioral health and mental health care and treatment does not have to be a negative thing to participate in. And doing couples and family therapy too, I even tell people I meet with, hey, you know, it's okay for us to laugh sometimes. That's what we do sometimes.
Right.
And I
Right.
bet everyone here can say the same thing.
Absolutely. Renee, tell us real quickly, where is the conference going to be? Is there a charge for it, or who can attend?
There is a charge. The charge is $20, two for $40, $25 for an individual ticket. Lunch is included, and it is Saturday, May 19th. From 11 to 4 p.m. We also will have some vendors available, and it's at the William J. Harrison Center.
It sounds like it's going to be a great time, very educational. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you for doing what you're doing in the community. We appreciate it. And thank you for joining us for the Pulse of St. Louis. Remember, if you missed any part of the show, download the Pulse of St. Louis podcast in the iTunes or Google Play stores. And remember, for News 24/7, download the News 11 app. And for news during the week, be sure to watch News 11 at noon, 4, and 7. I'll see you next time.